about it, they're kind of like smaller heart shapes. And then as you're coming towards the bottom, you're gonna still overlap this one. And what I like to do is I like to make this end, I kind of want to make it a little bit curvier. And then going past it, I'm just gonna draw like a little scrunchie or like a band right underneath it. It's gonna match that same shape, but to help separate, I'm just gonna color it in. And then from here, this is totally optional to you guys. I'm just gonna draw like a little strand of hair poking off of that. This is what I like to do when I'm drawing the braids. And then just darken the rest of the lines. And then I'm just gonna go in with my pencil and show you guys the zigzag pattern that we ended up making. And see, that's like a really smooth zigzag. And it's kind of like proves my point from earlier that I don't want to start off with the zigzags and like kind of make those perfect and then end up messing these strands up in the end. It's best to start off with the strands first and then go and mess around with the zigzags. So yeah, that's how you draw braids. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Cadillac Cartoons. Today I'm going to show you how to draw a dress. Now, first off, we're going to start off drawing a prom dress, and then we're going to work our way up to a dress with actually sleeves on it, and one is going to be a little bit shorter. So this will kind of be more of a skirt than a dress, but we're going to draw this later on in the video. This one is a little bit more complicated, so we're not going to draw this one, but these two are just going to be the easier ones to draw than the one in the middle. So with that being said, let's get to it. So what you guys see here is a fashion figure made specifically for this video, and it's available on my Patreon if you want to go get yourselves a copy. But with that being said, let's get to actually drawing it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the breasts here. We're going to work from top to bottom. So up here where the breasts are, we're going to make, I don't know necessarily what it's called, but I guess they're called the cups where the dress is. So we're just gonna make like two curves like right up here, like right in the midpoint between the neck and the breasts. And then once we pass the breast, we're gonna go underneath the armpit and we're gonna keep making that straight line. Although we can make a curve like this, that's what I actually used to do, but I don't do it anymore because it's supposed to be just like this. But you can do it like this. You can do a curve, but you don't necessarily have to because there is a backing to the dress. So I'm just gonna make a slight one actually. Okay. And then right here where the midpoint of the torso is, kind of where the torso kind of almost tapers, like right where it comes inward, like right around here, like where it stops from going inward, we're gonna make a line there. That's the midpoint of the torso, and that's where the dress is going to start. So let's erase these arrows. So after that, we're going to draw sort of a semicircle shape. Imagine if a sphere was kind of cut in half, but also distorted, so most of the legs will be covered, but still enough so we can see the shoes. So that's what most of the dress is going to be, and that's going to kind of draw the viewer's eye towards the actual character in a dress, you know? So we're gonna draw a shape just like this, but I kind of just mentioned it, but here's a visual, just like this, and then we're gonna make a line just right at this point, like right here. So we're gonna still see the shoes. So we're not going to go too far down, although we can, but for this tutorial we're not going to. And then I got too many lines here. So that's pretty much the dress right there. Those are the basic guidelines. So this top part that we drew earlier, we can leave it just like this because we don't have to do much to it unless you want to add details if you want. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to time-lapse the coloring process of the dress and then also add some details to this bottom part of the dress and any other details that I want to add, but most of that is already done up here. But we're going to add details to the dress, and also I can give you some tips about how to draw some of the wrinkles in the dress, which some people kind of struggle with. But yeah, it's not this video isn't necessarily about drawing wrinkles exactly, but I figured I'd share some of the tips about drawing dresses in case if I make a future video about drawing wrinkles, I may forget to mention it, but this is what I'm going to do here. Since this bottom part of the dress is going to be covered with kind of like a whole bunch of streaks, we're going to start at the bottom and work our way back to the top, because when you look at it, this shape kind of tapers and also curves back to where we started up here. So we're going to kind of work the opposite way back up when we're drawing the wrinkles for the dress, and also following that same shape. So imagine if this shape was kind of squished like this. That's how I usually draw the wrinkles in the dress. We're gonna do something just like this. And then right here at the top, this is actually called a tension spot. That's where all kind of all the tightness is going to, if that makes sense. So there's going to be a whole lot of wrinkles up here. So I'm just going to draw big lines and little lines here and there. And now back at the bottom of the dress, we're going to add like little bumps at the bottom, just to show that there are individual wrinkles. So like there's a bump here and a bump there, and then there's the one big one. So now that the entire dress is drawn, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like when it's all inked and colored. Just to show that there are individual wrinkles. I also wanted to mention, if you're drawing a dress with markers, it's best to go stroke by stroke so you can get those actual lines in there. And by doing so, you're kind of exemplifying that there are streaks in this bottom of the dress. So even though this bottom part of the dress is mostly streaks, I also did streaks when I'm trying to shade. As you can see here, I used a brush marker for doing the shades, and I tried to keep the streaks as clean as possible, and same with the highlights. So yeah, that's how you draw a prom dress. So let me switch to the other template so we can get started on the other dress. So like I mentioned in the beginning, the dress that we're going to draw now doesn't go straight down to the feet like the one we just drew. It's actually going to stop right above the knee. So it's going to be sort of a kind of like a ballerina dress, but not exactly. I think it's called a tutu, but we're not going to draw a tutu, but it's just going to be somewhat at this height. This one's actually going to have sleeves, unlike the other one. And the sleeves I'm going to draw for this dress has a specific name, and I'll get to that when I get there. But for now, we're going to start to draw the collar, which is going to make a U shape for the collar, like right above the neck. Let's try to even it out. There we go. And then the sleeves that I'm going to draw now are called puff sleeves, which means they're going to be circle shaped with some elastic on the arms here. And then right here where this elastic is, and don't forget that elastic, and then the wrinkles coming off of it. And then like the other dress, it kind of stops at the midpoint of the torso, which is kind of where they come inward, and then the point where they stop, which is going to be like right over here. It's kind of like an hourglass where it comes in. That's where the midpoint of this torso will be. So it's going to be right here. and then that's where the dress is going to stop. So this is the part where it could be elastic, but it's not exactly elastic. But even if it isn't, we're still going to add some tension spots like right around this area, like we did with the other dress. So we're going to start to draw sort of a cone shape. You know, one of those like actual cones. If you're you know how when you're training for sports and they have sort of those little cones with like a big circle in it. It's something, we're gonna draw a shape just like that. But again, the dress is gonna stop like right above the knee. So it's gonna have an above knee height. And then right up here where we started at, we're gonna draw sort of like a ribbon. And then a bow kind of like on the side, like on the picture I showed you at the beginning. So we're gonna make it just like that. And then, sorry if this is hard to see, but it's a ribbon right there hanging off of that little ribbon right there. And then comes the fun part. So right here where the dress stops at, we made this shape just like this, but instead we're gonna make that sort of shape, but it's also gonna come outward, and I'll explain in a second. So I'm gonna draw an arrow, and it's gonna come sort of in the opposite direction. It's gonna kind of like curve up, just like that. So that's the direction we're gonna make this dress in. But we're not going to make it too much curved upward. We're not going to exemplify that too much. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and it's kind of already drawn. And I'm going to curve back down. And then we're actually going to follow this line here, making up and down curves, sort of like a wavelength, just like this. And then just trying to match that other side. You don't necessarily have to, but you can match both sides. And then this straight line that we drew earlier, that was actually a guideline, so we can erase that now that we don't need it. And then the rest of the legs here, that's actually, I'm just going to leave that white as if they were like either thigh highs or white leggings or whatever they are. They're just going to stay white. And then we're still going to color the shoes here. So let me grab my pen and start inking.
is in the building, nigga.
So that's how you draw dresses. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Cadillac Cartoons. And today I'm going to show you how to draw hair. So hair is a pretty complicated topic to cover, but I'm going to show you guys how I go about specific hairstyles. I'm not going to cover every single hairstyle in this video, just going to cover like 3, like how I do straight hair, how I do curly hair, and how I do it normally. That's all I'm going to do in this video. So let's get to it. So as you can see, there are 3 circles here. These are supposed to be the head or the skull, and then this line here is actually the center line, so I can kind of center everything. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a point right here, or you can choose the other side of here as long as it's up here somewhere. So I'm going to take this point and I'm going to come off this circle, but still following it, and then going to come back in sort of like this, and then do the same thing on the other side, but still connecting to that point. Okay, and then coming like right from where we stopped at, like right before, like right up here, we're gonna come back outward and then come back in so it all connects together. Even though the center line doesn't go all the way down here, try to make it so that it kind of intersects with that center line. So let's see, like right around here, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And that's how it kind of intersects. So, and we can make this, so as you can see, there's like a curve here. We can make that a little bit more curvier. And then it kind of tapers down here. So yeah, you got to make sure that curve is in there. And then I don't like to draw hair as like one specific shape. I like to add strands of hair, because hair, even though it is a solid and it has a definite shape, I like to provide some strands of hair just to make it look like it's hair. So I'm just going to provide like a few strands here and there. Like there's one, and then I can add 2 on the other side. But you can add however many you want. So there's a couple strands there. And I'm gonna add 1 up here. I don't have a specific way of doing strands, just making sure they kind of follow that same line that we drew, like our basic guideline that we started with, like when we did this curve and it comes back in, something like that, but you know, still on that line and following that line, if that makes sense. But yeah, so that's how I draw normal hair. If you're doing it from the back view, which I'm doing in this video, just make sure you got that curve in there. But if you're drawing like a regular character and you're drawing a front view of it, make sure that when you're actually drawing the hair, if you run out of space, you don't have to necessarily go like very, very long. If you stop somewhere, you can actually make a curve coming back outward so you can show what kind of hairstyle you're actually drawing, like I'm doing here. It's best to use that just so you don't confuse it with like straight hair. And now we're going to start to draw the next hairstyle, and it's going to be actually straight with these same strands. So again, we can start off with a point right up here. We can start up here as well, but I'm going to be over here. And then for now, we're going to make that same curve that we did here where it almost tapers, but it doesn't. Okay, so we're going to stop right about there. And then I'm going to come straight down. And now we're going to create those same strands. So now we're going to create that same tapering line. And then create some strands following that line. And yeah, see, that's pretty much how I do like straight here, because you know it's straight. So now I'm going to show you how to do this same straight hairstyle but with different strands. So let me show you. So again, starting with these curves around the head and then straight down. Now, unlike what we did with this hairstyle, we're not going to make a tapering line. We're actually going to connect these two lines here. So we're gonna make it as if her hairstyle is actually a bunch of bangs. So we're gonna have a bunch of upward cuts. We're gonna curve this line here. And we're gonna make upward cuts like this. Like here and there. It doesn't matter how big they are, it doesn't matter where they are exactly, as long as they're on this line and they actually look like upward cuts. And then you can have it poking out like this. And even though it's straight, you can actually add some curves on this line here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for drawing straight hairstyles. But if you did have trouble drawing any of these hairstyles in the video, it just takes practice. Because hair isn't one of the easiest things to draw. It is kind of complex depending on what hairstyle you draw. But, you know, just keep working at it. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Cadillac Cartoons, and today I'm going to show you how to draw the female body. Now, before we get started on this video, I just want to let you guys know that before we get to drawing the female body, you're going to need a picture of a face drawn. And I have a lot of videos on my channel explaining how to draw the face at a 3/4 view, how to draw the face at a profile, how to draw the face at a front view, and how to draw it at a back view. There's a lot of face tutorials on my channel, and I'll link to one of those face videos right there in the card, and I'll also link to all of my face videos down in the description down below. But if you do have your face drawn like I do on my page right now, we're ready to get started. Okay, so off of the face, we made a neck, which is sort of like a parenthesis shape on this side, and then the opposite parenthesis shape on this side. And I'm gonna draw like a little collar right here. It's not going to be permanent, but it's just something to help us. Okay, and then coming off of the neck, we're going to make the shoulders. And then I'm going to draw a long line like this. And that's our line of action. And according to the line of action and the rules of anatomy, the halfway point would be right around here. So the torso would be bulged this way towards the left, and then the legs will kind of be hyperextended because in reality the legs don't bend backwards that much. So the way the legs will be drawn, they'll kind of be hyperextended, but they won't be bent back like how they are on birds. But if that was confusing, just watch the rest of the video so you get a better understanding, or at least a visual of what I'm talking about now. Okay, so coming off of the shoulders, we're going to begin to make the torso. Let's say we can have a stopping point right about here. It's close to this point, but that was just an estimate. And then off of this shoulder, it's not going to be the same line as this one, but it's going to make sort of a curve coming back to this line. Let me give it some better depth. Okay, and then a little off of this point, we're gonna make another point right here and then connect that back down here. Okay, and then this point right here is where the breasts are gonna lie. So I'm gonna begin to draw the breasts, which look like water balloons. So I might just draw just a letter C shape, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. But before we do, let's make a little guide for us first so we can align it right. So I'm just going to make like an upside down U shape or a bump shape coming towards the line of action or the center line, whatever you want to say. And then once we come back down, we can begin to come back up and make another letter C shape that looks just like this but backwards. Okay, we can kind of curve that in just a little bit. Okay, and then what I like to do is I like to make a couple lines to map out the midpoint in case I want to go back and fix it, which I probably won't do in this video, but that's just in any case. And then I like to straighten this line out that's underneath the breast. And then it kind of and then the bottom of the torso kind of looks like a cup shape. But then coming back up here, we won't begin to draw the arms just yet because we'll save that for later. But for now, I can draw a little circle here because we're going to use that to draw the arms. And I'm also going to draw a little point inside of it. Yeah, so we're going to use both of those later. And then we're not going to see much of that on this side, so I'm going to draw like a portion of this circle on that side. And we won't see the point either, unless you want to draw it on top of the breast to help as a guide later. But again, this is at a 3/4 view, so we won't see much of it. Alright, and now let's transition down and draw the rest of the body. So on a female, the hips are kind of curvier than they are on males. So right here where this line is, that's the waistline. That's not necessarily the hips. So just to get that straight. So the hips kind of come out. And make like a wider shape like this. So again, this is the waistline. These are the hips. The reason this is called a waistline is because there are jeans for girls that can go all the way up to here, and there are some jeans that only go up to the hips, and the same thing with dresses. So it can get confusing, but that's the waistline. This is the hips. The hips are wider. Okay, and now I'm going to begin to draw the crotch, and I'm going to make a triangle shape to help me do that. So that's going to give the illusion of underwear, and underwear on women can be that high, so just keep that in mind. Alright, and now we can begin to draw the legs. So, but before I do, I'm going to make this circle right about here. And then over here as well. And then pick my midpoint. And then I'm going to use another set of guidelines, which is not this line of action, but it's going to somewhat follow it. So let me show you. So you see how I made this line a bit curved towards the right hand side? And the line of action is more curved to that side. The legs don't necessarily bend that way, but like I said, it will be hyperextended. So I'm going to have more of a curve on this leg too, because it's more on the right hand side than that one is. So I'm going to kind of clean that up just a little bit. Okay, and then we can begin to draw the legs. So coming from the midpoint of the crotch, I'm going to begin to draw the thighs. And then I'm going to make sort of like an oval shape for the knees. But what I'm really going to draw is sort of a parenthesis shape on that oval to indicate the kneecaps. And then more of a curved line for the bottom part of the leg. And now I can draw in the feet. Okay, I'm just gonna draw like a little guide for the ankles here, and I'm gonna draw that too. Okay, now for the back part of the leg, it's actually gonna start right here where the hips are. So, and a female has more curves on their body than males do. So coming off of the hips, we're actually gonna stop at this point because that's the back of the knee. So So we're gonna make one big curve that starts here and ends here. Okay, so we got the upper leg drawn, and then unlike what we just did, we're actually going to create a curve coming from this part of the leg, and then it kind of curves into this point where the ankle is. So I'm going to create a letter C shape or a parentheses shape for the calf. And then it's going to make a backwards letter C shape as a curve to come back to the ankle. I'm just going to draw like a little circle here for the knee. And then a stopping point down here for the ankle. Okay, so now from here, let's draw. So we're going to draw the thigh, and it has a curve. And then it's going to connect to that circle. And then on each side of that circle, we're going to draw in some little lines to indicate the knees. And now from the knees, we can begin to make some straight lines coming towards the ankle, or at least on this side of the leg. Okay, and then now it's going to be straight on this portion of the leg. And then the calves really start to show at the bottom portion of the back leg. So we got a straight one. It's gonna stop at the knees. And then that same curve that we did over here, we're gonna do right here, right now. Okay, and then I'm going to quickly draw in a foot. Okay, now let me zoom back out so we can see what we got on the body so far. So yeah, that's what we have on the body so far. Actually, let me erase all these guidelines now so I can fix the underwear. And yeah, we're looking pretty good so far. All that's left to do is draw the arms and hands. So now let's zoom back in. Okay, so we're gonna draw a line from this point. And then we're gonna make the line that's the same length as this one and pick a stopping point that's close to the crotch area. And then we're gonna make like a small circle, and that's what we're gonna use. So that line's gonna stop at the crotch area, and then draw a circle that stops close to the mid-thigh. And it looks pretty good. This one could use. Alright, and now we got our guidelines for the arms. So now we can draw them. So coming off the shoulder, we're going to make sort of like a waterfall curve. Because you know how the movement of the water on a waterfall kind of starts on one level and then kind of curves down. That's what we're going to do for the arms. So we're going to do that. And the same thing on the other side. And then from the elbow, which is this point here, we're going to make a curve that comes sort of close to the hand, close to what we did down here. and it's gonna gradually get shorter. That's what I forgot to mention. That's what the arm does when we transition from the shoulder to the hand. The arm length or the arm width will get shorter coming towards the hand. See how we started with this width and see how it got a lot shorter coming towards the hand? That's what I meant if you didn't understand. So before we get to drawing the hands, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. That way I can draw the hands all at once. Alright, so let's zoom back out and see the body with the arms. And yeah, so we drew a decent female body. All that's left to do is to draw in the hands, and I'm gonna time lapse it. But before I do, I just want to let you guys know that if you're interested in drawing hands, I got 2 videos explaining how to draw different hand movements or whatever. I'll leave links to one of those videos up here in the card, and I'll leave links to both videos down in the description. So without further ado, I'm gonna draw these hands in time lapse and then come back to you guys with some final words. Alright, so now here's the female body with everything. But before I finish the video, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and then finalize this sketch. But before I end the video, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, finalize this sketch, and then come back to you guys again. But before I end the video, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser. And finalize this sketch. Alright, and that's how you draw the female body. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Cadillac Cartoons. Today I'm going to show you how to color hair with Copic markers. So the Copic markers you'll need for this video are Y21, Y26, Y28, and E44. And just a little heads up, there are more Copic color combinations that I use to color hair, and I'll show you that at the end of the video, but I'm just going to show you how to color like dirty blonde hair. So let's get to it. So I have a picture of a girl here, and I'm going to color just her hair, and then later on at the end of the video I'll time lapse the rest of the drawing so you can see everything with all the colors. So let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Y21 and I'm just going to color around the colors of the hair. I'm basically adding a base color to everything. Just making sure you have a wet layer of marker to work on top of, so that way blending will be a lot easier. Okay, and now I'm going to take my mid-tone, which is Y26. I'm just going to go around the dark areas of here. I'm going to make the brush strokes a bit big. Something just like this. I'm going to leave space in the middle because that's where the shine is going to be. And that's why I added a base tone with the lightest color that I had here. So that way it can be sort of the shine of the hair. And that's what we're going to do throughout. Now we're going to come back to Y21 and we're going to blend those in. Because if we leave it just like this, it'll kind of dry up and then it'll be hard to blend it back into the base tone. That's why we got to do this now. Okay, and now you kind of see a good gradient, but to some people you may not see a big amount of But to some people, you may not see a big gradient going on. So that's why we have our Y28s. So that way we can go around the darker parts of it. Like right here where it kind of stops. Just more like the edges, actually. Or something like that. Or kind of where it kind of creases. Like down here. And then up here a bit. And it's going to be dark over here since she's wearing a headband. Or hairband, whatever. And then some general shading that we would do. And then we're going to go back to Y26 and blend that back in. Because this Y28 color kind of seems a bit desaturated. And then it's going to kind of seem desaturated compared to the color that you get if you use Y26. So you want to kind of make that a bit more yellowish by using this Y26 color.
Kane is in the building, nigga.
And then going back to Y21 and blending everything else back in again. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add some E44 to the darkest parts. Unlike what we did with the Y26, we're going to add the darkest parts like right up here towards the scalp. And we're not going to add too much of it because we already added some darker places to it. But if your marker ink doesn't really stand out as much, you can do that. But I don't want to add too much to kind of, I don't know, make it look weird. Y28 to blend that into each other, and there you go. That's how you color hair with Copic markers. But let me time lapse the rest of the drawing so you can see everything with all the colors.
Kane is in the building, nigga.
So that's how you color hair with Copic markers. Here are some of the colors I use to color hair. This is only a few of the colors that I use for coloring hair. This list does go on and on. I just don't have combinations yet. But these are just a few combos that I use for coloring natural hair. Like there's some browns, some pale browns. Of course the yellow for blonde hair and a dark yellow for dirty blonde hair like we did today. And some red for like ginger and orange hair or whatever. And of course black. What's good everybody? Welcome back to Cadillac Cartoons. And today I'm going to show you how to draw a fairy. Now what you guys see here is a stick figure, which is the pose that I'm going to use to draw this fairy. And that's going to be the first thing you're going to need when we're doing a character design, because you don't want to start to draw your character and then make a whole lot of last minute decisions on yourself on what movement the body's going to have. Like for example, if this stick figure weren't here and if I were to start to draw the fairy right here right now, then I would be making the last minute decisions on myself on how the hand will go, how the hands will go, what the body would do, if there's a tilt, you know, stuff like that. So that's why I developed the pose first before doing any character designs. So what we're going to do for this video, we're going to start up at the face and move our way down. And since fairies have wings, I'll save that for last because that's, you know, behind everything. So let's get to it. Okay, so for my fairy character, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the face. And as you can see right now, I have the sphere drawn. And that's the shape that I always start out with when I'm drawing a face. But I'm not going to spend time talking about the face. But if you do want to learn how to draw the face, I made videos on how to draw the face, how to draw it at a 3/4 view, how to draw face shapes, how to draw face expressions, and all that stuff. So if you want links to any of those videos, they will be in the description down below, and one of those videos will pop up right here in the card for your convenience. So really quickly, I'm just going to sketch out a face so we can move on. So as you guys can see, I decided to add a flower on her headband because when I see fairies, I kind of get a nature vibe going on. And with nature comes, you know, flowers, grass, and other mythical creatures like unicorns and rainbows and stuff like that. So a flower would kind of be somewhere in between. But anyways, we can move on now. So the next part we're doing is the torso and the arms. So what I'm going to do for the torso is is right here where these dots are, those are the shoulders, and down here would be the crotch. So we're going to pretty much connect these two dots. So for the torso, we can start off up here because these two dots here are the shoulders, so we can come a little off the shoulders, let's say about here and here, and then I'm going to make sort of a breast here. And then I'm going to come down and make the waistline. And then do the same thing on this side, but not as much because this entire thing is a 3/4 view. Not really symmetrical, but the other breast will be here. And then the rest of the torso, let's take a look at this one more time. So as you can see, the distance from this shoulder to this hip, we're going to call that a hip for now, looks a bit longer. So this side of the body will be more stretched compared to here. And using my knowledge of anatomy, we're going to come off with the waistline here and begin to slowly develop the hip. And we're going to stop there for now. So we're going to move on after we finish drawing the rest of the torso, including the arms. So now for the arms, I'm going to come off with the neck and begin to follow the line that I already drawn here. Follow the guideline basically. And then right here at the elbow is where I begin to curve the line. But this is specifically how I draw arms. And then just a small hand movement is what I'm going to do here. So the hand that I'm drawing here is going to overlap the arm that we drew here just a little bit. And then the thumb. And then just a slight bend in the fingers. And then all I'm doing right now is sketching out the palm, but that's pretty much it on drawing that hand. So now let's transition to the other arm. And just like what we did here, it's not going to be seen as much because the head is covering that part, but we can begin to draw the arm over here, or the shoulder up here I meant, and then down here is the arm. Okay, and then this arm is kind of going to be in the distance because in a way it's being drawn in perspective, so it's going to get progressively shorter, not very shorter, but just maybe like a little bit as it goes towards this point here. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and then the hand, let's see what we can do about that. Let's see, does that look good? Let's do short. Does that look bigger than the other one? Nah. They look about right. I'm just finishing up the hand here. And yeah, that's looking pretty good for a hand. Now we can get back to drawing the torso. So let me zoom out just a little bit, and now we can begin to draw the legs. So we already got like the bottom half of the torso already drawn. The next thing we got to do is transition from the hips to the knees to the foot. And we already got the position in place for the legs, so not much needs to be done. All we got to do is, you know, draw it. So usually when I start to draw the legs, I come off with the waistline, but half of that line is already drawn, so we can just start off pretty much right here. But I'm going to come off of the waistline anyway. And then I'm going to follow this line and add a few curves to it. Okay. And then I'm going to come up to the crotch, like right here where the center line is, and right here where these two lines intersect, the lines for the hips plus the center line here, that's where I'm going to make the crotch. So that's going to come up like so. And then the other part of the leg, which will kind of connect. The other part of the leg that will kind of be going in the same direction as this line, but not exactly. But make a line that would best fits this one, but also following that same direction in a way. If hopefully that makes sense, but you know. So I'm gonna make just a kneecap here. So now that we got the top half of the leg already drawn, we can start off with the calf, which is coming off here and making a big curve. And coming inwards just a little bit, maybe tapering, but not exactly. But we are coming inwards, which makes the leg progressively shorter. Not by the distance, but because the leg does get shorter coming down. And then I'm gonna make the foots. Just gonna start off with just like a little wedge here, wedge or a triangle, and just sketch in just a small shoe here, and then a little decoration. And then we're gonna come back up to the hip here, this other hip, and then we're gonna make that same leg, but it's gonna kind of disappear around this area, and then come back around here behind this one. So again, we're going to come off of the waistline and make the thigh coming in this direction, and then make a stopping point and have it coming right behind the leg we just drew. And then we're just going to make a little part of this leg a little bit visible coming behind this one. And then make some of the foot visible. And actually we can just get rid of that. So that really completes the body portion of drawing this fairy character. So what we can do now is, let me center it, and then we can zoom back in near the torso. So we're gonna give her like a, you know, a Tinkerbell kind of dress. You know how Tinkerbell wears like a dress that looks something like this. So something like that is what we're gonna draw. So, except I'm gonna give this one sleeves. So we're gonna just sketch a little bit of sleeves on here. Then maybe like a short dress here. And then I want to keep that nature vibe kind of going. So instead of making the sleeves straight like how I have them here, we're going to call that a guideline, which I just erased. And then I'm going to add some cuts into it as if it were like, how should I say this? You know, crafted by nature or something like that. So it's not going to be, you know, department store clothing type thing, because I want to keep that nature vibe going. And then the collar can come up here as well. Again, keeping that nature vibe when drawing it. Okay, and then let's zoom out so we can see that again. Alright, so the fairy is looking pretty good now. All that's left now is to draw the wings. And now I'm not going to really spend time talking about different kinds of wings or whatever, and different ways to draw them. So really quickly, I'm just going to show you guys how to draw some fairy wings. So let's zoom back in, and then, you know, right along the back here, that's where we're going to start. So I'm just going to draw a wing with this kind of line. And then we're going to come back down with this sort of curve going on. And then it's going to come behind the arm as well. So we're going to see this line behind the arm. And then the bottom part of the wing is going to be a little bit smaller than the one we just drew. So the way to draw that is, you know, I'd say right about here, like right here behind the arm will be our starting point. So we're going to start off there and begin to make a circle, which we won't see it, but come back up towards the back. Okay, so now that one wing is drawn, for the other one, most of this part of the body will be overlapping it, so we won't see much of it. It'll still be this shape, but it'll be somewhat different. But we're going to replicate, I'd say, about this much of this wing right here, right above the head. Or maybe even smaller, whatever the case may be. Yeah, so it's going to look like a horn, but again, it's supposed to be a wing. So now that the wings are drawn, the fairy illustration is pretty much complete. But the way I drew her hair, it's going to be like... Alright, so that's what our fairy looks like so far. Let me ink it so you guys can see the entire thing completely finished. Alright, so that's how you draw a fairy. And what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Cadillac Cartoons, and today I'm going to show you guys how to create a bubble in Procreate. So I'm in Procreate right now. I have no layers, nothing has changed so far. So the first thing we're going to do when we're making bubbles, I'm going to change the background color so it's a darker color. We can make it black, okay? And now